In the dawn of civilization, beneath pyramids that pierced the heavens, a pantheon rose, gods carved in gold, stone, and fear. Ra, blazing sun god, sailed the sky in a boat of fire. Osiris, lord of the dead, ruled a shadowy afterlife. Hapi poured life from the Nile. Pharaoh, living god, declared himself divine. For millennia, their names echoed in chant and temple. Until one night in an upper room, a man spoke 3 words that shattered eternity. I am the way. Long before that upper room, God had already staged a cosmic courtroom in the land of Egypt. There, beneath the shadow of pyramids and sphinxes, Yahweh did not merely free slaves, he dismantled divinity. Every plague was a verdict. Every miracle was a rebuttal. While Pharaoh sat enthroned as a living God, claiming, "Who is the Lord that I should obey his voice?" Exodus 5:2. The true God prepared to answer, not with philosophy but with power. The 10 plagues were not random disasters. They were surgical strikes against the heart of Egypt's spiritual architecture, exposing the impotence of gods carved from fear and superstition. And in that ancient drama, we see a foreshadowing of the ultimate confrontation, the cross, where Christ would defeat not just human tyranny, but the powers of darkness themselves, Colossians 2:15. The Egyptians worshipped Ra, the sun god, believed to sail across the sky by day in his solar bark, bringing warmth, order, and life to the world. At dawn, priests chanted hymns as the first rays touched temple obelisks, declaring Ra's victory over chaos. To them, the sun was not just a star, it was the eye of God, the source of all vitality. But when Yahweh sent the 9th plague, not ordinary night, but a supernatural gloom so thick it could be felt, Exodus 10:21. For 3 days, the sun, the very symbol of Ra's power, was blotted out over Egypt. Temples fell silent. Priests trembled. The God of light was exposed as a created thing, subject to the command of the uncreated one. Centuries later, in the Gospel of John, we read, "In him was life, and the life was the light of men."
The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. John 1:4-5. This is no poetic metaphor, it is cosmic reality. Jesus is not a reflector of divine light like the moon or sun. He is the source. When he walked the earth, blind men saw, demons fled, and graves gave up their dead, not because he invoked a higher power, but because he was the power. Unlike Ra, who needed a boat to traverse the sky, Jesus walked on water. Unlike Ra, who retreated nightly into the underworld, Jesus descended into hell itself and rose triumphant. He is the Son of Righteousness, Malachi 4:2, but not a celestial body. He is the Son of God, the radiance of the Father's glory, Hebrews 1:3. To the Egyptians, the Nile was more than a river. It was the bloodstream of the nation, the gift of the god Hapi, who controlled its annual flood. Without the inundation, crops failed, famine came, and civilization collapsed.
Statues depicted Hapi as a man with a potbelly and papyrus plants, pouring water from 2 vases, symbolizing Upper and Lower Egypt. The Nile's waters were considered sacred. To defile them was sacrilege. Yet in the very first sign before Pharaoh, God commanded Moses, "Strike the water of the Nile, and it shall turn to blood." Exodus 7:17. Instantly, the life-giving river became a crimson torrent of death. Fish died, the water stank. The people dug desperately along the banks for clean water, but found none. Hapi, the provider, was powerless. Jesus, weary from travel, sits alone at noon, the hour when respectable women avoid the public square. But a woman comes, ostracized, thirsty, spiritually parched after 5 broken marriages and a life of shame. Jesus asks her for a drink. Shocked, she questions why a Jew would speak to a Samaritan. Then he says, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that is saying to you, 'Give me a drink,' you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water, John 4:10. He wasn't speaking of spring water or river flow. He meant a fountain within, eternal, self-renewing, satisfying the soul's deepest longing.
Unlike the Nile, which demanded ritual and seasonal dependence, image prompt, ritual jars chained to calendar. This water was offered freely to the outcast, the sinner, the foreigner. And when he later cried out in the temple courts, "If anyone thirsts, let him come to me and drink," John 7:37. He revealed himself as the true source Hapi could never be. The irony is staggering. The Nile turned to blood as a sign of judgment. The side of Christ pierced on the cross flowed with blood and water as a sign of mercy, John 19:34. That water symbol of cleansing, new birth, and spirit life flows from the throne of God in the New Jerusalem. A river of the water of life, bright as crystal, flowing from the throne of God and of the Lamb, Revelation 22:1. This river does not depend on seasons or geography. It does not dry up in drought or flood in excess. It is eternal, pure, and accessible to all who come in faith. Hapi promised fertility for a year. Jesus promises resurrection for eternity. God's confrontation with Egypt was never just about liberation, it was about revelation. Through the plagues, he declared, "On this night I will execute judgments against all the gods of Egypt. I am the Lord," Exodus 12:12. Lice, Geb, god of the earth. Flies, Khepri, scarab, god of creation. Livestock, Hathor and Apis. Boils, Sekhmet, goddess of healing. Hail, Nut, sky goddess. Locusts, Seth, god of storms. Darkness, Ra. And the death of the firstborn, Pharaoh himself, the divine son. In every case, Yahweh demonstrated that what Egypt called God was either a force of nature he controlled,
or a demonic illusion he shattered. And this pattern reaches its climax in Christ. The gods of Egypt were defeated in type at the Red Sea. They were defeated in truth at Calvary. Some recoil at Jesus' words, "No one comes to the Father except through me." They call it narrow, intolerant, arrogant. But consider, if there were many ways to God, then the cross was unnecessary. If morality, meditation, or mystery religions could save, why would the Son of God bleed and die? The exclusivity of Christ is not the arrogance of a tyrant, it is the urgency of a rescuer. Imagine a drowning man clinging to driftwood, while a lifeboat approaches. The captain shouts, "Grab this rope, it's the only one strong enough." Is that intolerance? No, it's love. So too, Jesus doesn't exclude other paths out of pride. But because there are no other paths, all others lead to shipwreck. Only he is the ark that rides the flood of judgment. So where does this leave us? The gods of Egypt are dust. Their temples are tourist sites. Their names are whispered only by archaeologists. But Jesus lives. To those who trust in self-effort, he says, "Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." Matthew 11:28. To those lost in spiritual confusion, he says, "I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." John 8:12. To those parched by empty religion, he says, "Let anyone who is thirsty come to me and drink." John 7:37. He does not demand perfection, only surrender. Not rituals, but relationship.
Not worship of creation, but communion with the Creator.